proceed with your opening statements.
Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the opening statement for the people is not going to take very much of your time. As Assistant District Attorney, it has been my duty to prepare and try a good many cases, but almost never, and certainly never when the crime charged.
Louis Rennie.
Louis Rennie? Louis Rennie.
Place your hand on the Bible. Do you swear that the evidence you are about to give is the whole truth as you know it before your God?
Yes, I do.
State your name and place of residence.
Louis Renier, 399 Cameron Street.
Take the stand.
Gwendolyn Kelton.
Gwendolyn Kelton? Gwendolyn Kelton. Miss Kelton?
All right, I'm coming. Land sakes, what's your hurry? I mean, Mr. Whitford? Barbara Squad, it's quite all right.
Miss Kelton?
Ooh, are you looking for a housekeeper?
Miss
I'm
Kelton?
quite good at it. Look, no
Miss
tap dance or
Kelton?
anything. Place your hand on the Bible. Yes, ma'am. I'll be happy to. It's a book I always try to live by. Do you swear that the evidence you are about to give is the full truth as you know it before your God? Well, land sakes, you don't think I'd lie about something like that? I do. I do? I'm not getting married. At least, I don't think I am.
Miss Kelton, proceed, please.
Sorry, Your Honor. Oh, all right. I do. State your name and place of residence. My name is Gwendolyn. Be sure to get that right now. It's L-Y-N, like Brooklyn. Gwendolyn Kelton, Miss, not Mrs. And I reside at 107 Leicester Avenue.
Miss Kelton, what is your occupation?
I'm a housekeeper.
Presently employed?
Well, no, not since Mr. Brand passed. But I'm looking around.
Miss Kelton.
So if you know of anyone
Miss
who's looking
Kelton.
for a housekeeper, the finest
Miss
reference is
Kelton.
called Gwendolyn Kelton.
Miss Kelton, there are certain rules and regulations of court procedure that we all must try to observe. It will save us both time and trouble if you're to keep your replies to my questions directly to the point and as brief as possible.
All right, if that's the way you want it.
Thank you. Now, who was your most recent employer?
Mr. Brand.
You mean Chester Arthur Brand, recently deceased?
That's right. I guess everybody knows he was murdered. Shot, bam, bam, bam! All right, I will try to do it the way you want.
Thank you. Now, I'll go to this. You were employed as a housekeeper by Mr. Brand in his apartment at 420 Park Drive West.
That's right.
And during the employment, you resided in that apartment?
Yes, I had my own room and bath. It was a very large apartment. 9 rooms, 4 baths.
And how long were you employed by Mr. Brand?
Well, it would have been 8 years in the fall. No, 9 years.
9 years.
I remember because I was
years.
dating Monsieur Jacques.
9 years?
Yes.
You had some knowledge then of Mr. Brand's affairs, of his private life.
Oh, yes. No one had more knowledge. He spent most of his time in that apartment.
He did not have an office, a place of business?
Sure, he had an office, but I mean, he didn't even bother to go near it. Maybe once or twice a week at most.
I see. And do you know of your own knowledge, Miss Kelton, what Mr. Brand's business consisted of?
Well, investments, I guess you'd call it. Stocks, bonds, and real estate. Wherever there was money to be made. Some folks called him a gambler. I mean,
Objection, Your Honor.
yeah.
Yes, sustained. Strike the last part of the witness's reply.
respond with what you know of your own knowledge, Miss Kelton, not from what other people have told you. That's one of the rules.
Well, I am trying.
And thank you. But you do know that Mr. Brant was a man of considerable resource, what could be called a rich man?
Why, yes. Money was the least of his worries.
And did he at times keep large sums of it around the house?
Yes, and I used to tell him all the time that he was just too careless with it.
Careless? In what way?
Well, he had this safe, one of those wall types, but most of the time he'd even bother to use it. Just keep it laying in an envelope in his desk drawer.
And you know why Mr. Brant felt it necessary to keep such large sums just lying around?
Well, it wasn't really necessary. It was just that he liked to have it around.
You know that to be fact.
Yes, I used to argue with him about it all the time. I told him he could pay by check, that he was just asking to be robbed. But he'd only laugh and call me an old fuddy-duddy.
Oh, I see. Now, I'm going to ask if you're acquainted with the defendant in this trial, Barbara Scott.
Am I? I know her as well as I know my own
If
daughter.
if
You
she's,
really
if
love
she's,
her.
if she is present in this courtroom and you recognize her, please point her out to the court.
Such rigmarole. She's right there.
Yes. And you have known Miss Scott for a number of years.
Ever since I went to work for Mr. Brand.
And did you see her often in the apartment?
Yes, she was in and out of there all the time.
On what basis?
Basis? Well, she worked for Mr. Brand. Is that what you mean?
Yes. And do you know what Miss Scott's job was for Mr. Brant?
Oh, well, she was his secretary. Sort of.
A sort of secretary?
Well, she did a lot of other things for him, too, like doing his shopping, buying his theater tickets, things like that. Oh. He used to call her his Girl Friday. Remember that?
And did Miss Scott sometimes handle large sums of money for Mr. Brant?
Lots of times. Every week.
For what purpose?
Salaries for the people at the office. Miss Scott would come and get them from the apartment and bring them down to the office to pay them off.
And do you know why Mr. Brant chose to pay his employees in cash rather than by check?
He never told me, but I could guess that he just
Never
wanted to
mind,
show off.
never
I
mind,
mean, he
Miss
really
Miss
likes
Hudson.
to show
Never mind.
off.
Now, I'm going to ask if you will remember the events on the day and evening of last February 7th.
Do I remember? Will I never forget them for as long as I live?
And was Mr. Brant home in the apartment all day?
Yes, he didn't leave the apartment at all.
And were you also home all day, Miss Kelton?
Yes. Oh, except for when Mr. Brandt sent me out. 6 o'clock that was.
Mr. Brant sent you out of the apartment?
Yes. Told me to go see a movie.
Was he in the habit of doing that?
Only when he was expecting company. And he didn't want me to be there.
And do you know if Mr. Brant was expecting company on this particular occasion?
Well, I couldn't say from my own knowledge, but I do know that just before that, he got a phone call.
Mr. Brant received a phone call just before sending you out of the apartment.
Yes, I answered the phone, and it was some girl, some young woman.
Was this young woman's voice familiar to you?
No, I don't think I'd ever heard it before,
And you say this happened at about 6 p.m.
or a few minutes after.
All right. What happened next? Did you go to the movies as Mr. Brant had directed?
Yes, and when I got there, I was real mad at him about it.
Why?
The picture was terrible, one of those real little stinkers.
But you sat through it.
Not all of it. I took as much of it as I could stand. And then I left and went back to the apartment.
Now, this part is important, Miss Kelton. So I want you to think carefully before answering. What time was it when you arrived back at the Brant's apartment?
I don't have to think carefully about that. It was just 7:45.
You're very sure of that.
Yes, I remember because I checked my watch before I went in, thinking Mr. Branch wouldn't like it that I hadn't stayed away long enough. But I didn't care.
Okay, and when you got back up to the Brant's apartment, was anything out of the way or unusual?
Well, the first thing unusual was that the door was open.
You mean the door to the apartment was unlocked?
Not just unlocked, it was There,
Johnson,
they check.
we won't take you any further than that. Now, I want to go back for a minute. You have said that Miss Scott was a frequent visitor of the Brent's apartment.
Yes, she was there 3 or 4 times a week usually.
And do you remember the last previous occasion before February 7th that she visited there?
Yes. It was just the day before last.
Which would make it February 6th.
Yes. A Tuesday.
And did anything unusual occur during that visit?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Will you describe it to the court, please?
They had a quarrel, her and Mr. Brandt.
Do you know what the quarrel was about?
Yes, they were talking so loud and shouting and all. I couldn't help hearing, though I wasn't.
This is ridiculous.
It was about.
Why was that ridiculous? This is ridiculous, ridiculous. Order. I stop it. I stop it. Order. We will have order. Counselor, haven't you explained to your client that in the circumstances of a first-degree indictment, the law specifically provides that she receives a jury trial, whether she likes it or not? Yes, Your Honor, I've explained that to her. We cannot have these outbursts. I do not wish to do so, but if it becomes necessary, I shall take measures to ensure that she is forcibly restrained.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll see that it doesn't happen again.
Very well.
Perhaps we would have a short recess.
It is now approaching noon. We will take our usual recess for lunch. Court is adjourned until 1:15 this afternoon.
Do you know of any nice restaurants in the area?
The Court of General Sessions, 3rd District is now in session. The Honorable Judge Finley is now presiding. Be seated.
Proceed.
Call Gwendolyn Kelton.
Gwendolyn Kelton. Gwendolyn Kelton.
I'm back. Hello, Mr. Woodward. Barbara, did you have a nice lunch? I know I did. Judge Finley, your chair was just way too uncomfortable. But don't worry, I brought a pillow.
Then take your seat, Miss Kelton. You may resume where we left off before adjournment, Mr. Woodward. The stenographer will read the last question and answer on the record.
Question by Mr. Woodward. Do you know what the quarrel was about? Answer by witness. Yes, they were talking so loud and shouting at me, I couldn't help hearing, though I was in the next room. It was about...
About what, Miss Kelton?
About money. I gathered that Miss Scott asked Mr. Brandt for a loan, and he refused to give it to her.
Did you hear why she wanted the loan? Or for what purpose?
Yes, it was for Janice. It was for someone named Janice.
Do you know to whom she was referring when she mentioned that name, Janice?
Well, I know Miss Scott has a younger sister.
Objection, Your
I've
Honor.
never
This
met her,
reply
but she's-
constitutes inference.
Sustained.
No one is known to you personally by that name?
Not to me personally, no, but Miss
Okay,
Scott,
we'll let
I
that,
think she
we'll,
knows.
we'll let that pass for the moment. We'll let that pass. Now, this quarrel between Mr. Brandt and the defendant, was it a violent one?
Oh, yes. It got pretty violent near the end. Miss Scott was shouting at Mr. Brandt how ungrateful he was after the way she worked so hard for him all those years, and he turning her down like that. She said he was no better than a snake.
And what did Mr. Brandt reply to that?
Why, he told her if she didn't like it, she could go straight to... Can't see the rest. It's a bad word.
Very well. I think we can leave it to the jury's imagination. Now, was anything else said during the quarrel that you feel we should know about?
Well, right after that, Miss Scott told Mr. Brandt that he'd be sorry, that he was going to regret his actions. Then she came stalking out and left the apartment.
And you say this quarrel occurred on February 6th. That is the day before Mr. Brandt was shot and killed?
That's right.
Thank you, Miss Kelton. Your witness, Miss Scott.
Thank you.
Come right on over.
Now, Miss Kelton, Brand's fiance, Miss Vincent, told you that my client had shot Mr. Brand.
Yes, she did.
But my client herself, in those first few minutes before you called the police, didn't say that she had shot him, did she?
No, not in those first few minutes. I mean, she was too shocked to say anything. Mr. Brown was on the floor.
I guess
dead. I mean, who would say
Yes or
anything?
no, Miss Kelton? Did my client say that she had shot Mr.
Well, I was only trying to tell you what I knew. I mean,
Mr. Jones?
no.
Thank you. No further questions. You're excused.
You mean that's all the questions I'm going to be asked?
Oh, that's right. You're excused, Miss Kelton.
Well, I never expected to get off that easy. Are you sure you don't want to ask me any more questions? I mean, really? Are you looking for housekeeper? I'll see you all later.
That's right.
And did you ask Mrs. Scott? Or what happened next?
Why, I don't remember anything else happening until Miss Kelton got there.
When was that? How long after your arrival?
I don't remember exactly. I was so upset, so appalled by what had just happened.
Would it have been about 10 minutes after your arrival? 15 minutes?
I'd say closer to 5.
Thank you.
Barbara wasn't there. No one was there. I made sure of that before I went in. Proceed. Well, I got something to eat, and I took a cab over to Mr. Brandt's. And
Do you remember what time that was?
yes, I looked at my watch going up the elevator, wondering how late it was. It was exactly 25 minutes of 8.
It's extremely important, Janice. Are you positive it was 25 minutes of 8? Your watch couldn't have been fast or slow.
It couldn't possibly have been. It's a very accurate watch. And I said it just a short time before at the railroad station, by railroad time.
And you are now willing to repeat, under your sworn oath, that it was neither 20, nor 21, nor 22, but exactly 25 minutes of 8.
Yes, I am. Exactly 25 minutes of.
And then what did you do when you got to the apartment?
Well, I pushed the buzzer on the door and waited. But no one answered. So I tried the door and found it unlocked. So I went inside.
What did you see when you went inside?
I saw Mr. Brand in the living room. He was lying on the floor, dead.
How do you know this?
It was obvious. The position he was in, and his eyes just sort of open and glassy. It was just obvious.
Proceed.
Well, I could tell he'd been shot in the neck. And the gun was lying there on the floor beside him. And then
The
I
gun was lying on the floor of the living room.
yes, a few feet away from the body.
Just a minute. Is this the gun that you saw there?
Why, it looks like it. But I couldn't be too sure. I didn't examine it closely enough at the time.
All right. And after you entered the apartment and saw Mr. Brandt on the floor dead, and the gun lying on the floor, what did you do then?
I turned around and ran right out as fast as my feet would carry
And
me.
you didn't touch anything in the apartment, didn't pick up the pistol, for instance.
I should say not. When I found out what had happened, I was so petrified I could scarcely breathe. My one impulse was to get out of there as fast as I could.
You left then, as soon as you realized that Mr. Brandt was dead, had been shot.
Yes.
And how long do you estimate that you remained in the apartment altogether?
Oh, it couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 minutes, something like that.
So that if you entered the apartment at 25 minutes of 8, it couldn't have been later than 20 minutes of when you left.
Do you swear that the evidence you are about to give is the whole truth as you know it before your God?
Oh, sure. What have I got to lose?
State your name and place of residence.
My name is James Aloysius. Perry. But everybody calls me Jimmy. Place of residence, 808 East Lakeside Avenue.
Take the stand.
Thanks.
Now, Mr. Perry.
Call me Jimmy. It'll make me feel better.
Very well. Jimmy, what is your occupation?
I am an elevator operator. A great occupation for us. Wait for it. And them. And them.
And are you employed at present?
Sure thing. At 420 Park Drive West.
That is an apartment building and the residence of the late Chester Arthur Grant.
Right. Real class, too. One of the niftiest spots in town, if I do say so.
And have you been employed there long?
A couple of years, yes. More or less, say 2.5.
2.5 years. And during that time, you have become acquainted with the guests who come to call on Mr. Grant.
With some of them. The regular ones, you know.
Yes. And was Miss Sheila Vincent one of those regular ones?
Oh, I got real pal with her.
Callie?
Oh, Pally, you know I'd pass the time of day. Tell the latest jokes and she'd laugh like, no. Alpaca!
Yes. And do you... And do you remember the incidents on the evening of February 7th?
I recall real good on it being the night the big man got knocked off.
The big man?
Mr. Brand, that's what everyone called him around the house.
You were on duty operating the elevator on that evening.
Part of the evening I was, yes.
And while you were on duty, do you recall taking Miss Sheila Vincent up to the Grant apartment?
I took her up.
Do you remember what time that was?
Sure, it was back.
Now, I want you to be very careful in answering this next question, Jimmy. A great deal hinges on it.
I don't have to be careful, Miss Scott. I can tell you right now it was about 25 past 7. According to my watch.
How can you place the time so accurately?
Well, I'll tell you. See, I take Miss Vincent up to Mr. Brand's floor, then I come back down, see. And when I come back down, my Mike is waiting for me. Wanted to know what time it is, see. So I took a peek at my ticker, and I told him it was 7:25.
You took a look at your watch to tell the doorman the time, and it was exactly 25 minutes past 7.
You got it.
And you've been able to remember these incidents, all these things?
Sure, I'm terrific at remembering things. I've got one of those photographic memories.
Now, suppose I were to suggest to you, Jimmy, that your mistake, that instead of having been 7:25 when you took Miss Vincent up, it was 20 minutes of 8. What would you say to that?
I would say you were off your rocker. It couldn't have been 20 of 8.
Couldn't have been?
Impossible.
Why?
Because I wasn't there at 20 of 8. My relief showed up, and I went off duty at 7:30. It's hot here, let's see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your witness, Mr. Woodward.
Mr. Perry.
Jimmy, to you, sir.
Jimmy, did you give this information of yours to the police during the time of the original investigation?
No.
Or why not?
They didn't ask me now.
And who asked you to give it here, in this courtroom now?
Nobody. I got in touch with Miss Scott myself on my own account.
You volunteered the information to her?
That's right.
When was that?
That was last night.
Why did you wait all this time to get in touch with her?
Well, it didn't seem important enough for me to stick my neck out until I read that story in the paper last
Well, what
night.
story?
The story where Miss Vincent claims she went up to the Brand apartment at 20 of 8. Then I seen how important that time gift was. My take
Hold
an
on.
innocent
Do you
person
mean-
from being
Do
shot.
you mean to say that you volunteered your information to her for the express purpose of disproving Miss Vincent's testimony?
Sure. What is so hard to understand about that? But she was lying.
She
and I
was
repeat,
lying.
she was lying.
She was lying. How do you know that?
Well, it's obvious, ain't it? She swears she went to the apartment at that time. Swears herself black and blue she did. When I really know. She went up and
But
said,
how
"Oh,
do you know
my
that?
watch
How
was
do you know
empty."
that? Granted, your recollection of time is accurate.
Oh, it is.
That she wasn't honestly mistaken.
Come on now, bud.
It's possible, isn't it?
Oh, sure. Anything is possible. It's possible. I could sit on a hand's egg and make it happen. But I wouldn't want to bet on those chances now. Would I? Would I? Would
No further questions. You're excused, Mr. Perry.
Oh, well, thanks, Your Honor, for the use of this hall. I want to fix that. Well, so long, folks. I'll see you all later. I just need a word with Barbara. Barbara.
Mr. Perry.
I can't talk now. We're going to go to the bathroom.
Mr. Perry is charged with all her prior rights intact. Adjourned.
Oh, Barbara, isn't it wonderful?
Yes. I didn't know you wanted to say so.
Congratulations, dear.
Thank you, Edith, but how can I repay you?
You need, let's just say, I repay a small amount of the debt to you.
If I could get a word in edgewise, I'd like to say I approve the verdict. Completely.
Thank you, Alan. And thank you for being softly fair to me through the whole trial.
So, Mr. Woodward, it strikes me that you may want to study the transcript for possible action based on the testimony you heard.
I will. As a matter of fact, I anticipated the verdict a little. A warrant is being drawn up for the arrest of Sheila Vincent.
I'll send a copy of the transcript as soon as it's written. Congratulations, Miss Scott, on conducting a very sound defense. Our bar can always use such new, promising talent.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Coming from you, that is praise. And as for you, young lady, I hope you've learned that lying only gets you in worse situations than you were in before.
Oh, yes. I have.
Good. I'm inclined to believe that, you know. Goodbye.
Bravo!